Hi, Alan Hendricks here with Intentional Walk. We're finishing up our first week in the 8-week process of learning how to be a man. This week we've talked about our identity as men. Next week we'll dive into our integrity. Hey, I know we've talked a lot about having a Bible and buying a book, but to save some time today, we've put all those details in the comments below. It's Friday, and there's lots to get ready for the weekend, so let's jump right in. Our home plate verse for today is found in the first chapter of Genesis, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Genesis 1:27. It's so easy to read these verses in Genesis and breeze right past them without stopping to really reflect on what they mean for us as men. And yet the statement that God made us in his image should stop us in our tracks. After all, this wasn't said about anything else in God's creation. It was only said about humans. Shouldn't we spend some time thinking about what this means for us and for our identity as men? What does it mean that we were made in God's image? Well, it has nothing to do with our physical makeup. God is not a biological person in that way that we understand the concept. So being made in God's image must be something other than appearance. I think there are a few ways we can understand this. The first is tied to the second part of verse 26, which says, "They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, and all the earth, and all the creatures that crawl on the earth." It's from Genesis 1:26b. Being made in God's image means we have dominion or rule over creation. We're the apex of creation. We've been given rule in a way that no other created thing has been given rule. There are aspects of our worlds that we are in charge or command of. But here's the deal. Our rule was always intended to mirror God's rule. We are to rule with justness, fairness, compassion, humility, and so on. Being made in God's likeness means in part being good stewards of everything He has entrusted to us. Our spouses, our children, our mission, our very lives. Second, being made in God's image means we have a shadow of God's nature in us. While we'll still never exhibit those traits anywhere near as perfectly or universally as God will, we have the capacity to be loving, forgiving, steadfast, just, and so on. Being made in God's image means that we have the potential to be messengers of godliness in our everyday lives. And so we have to ask ourselves, how is the world around us better because of God's nature flowing out of us? How are we reflecting God's character in our homes and in our workplaces, on the field, with our teams? In what ways are our conversations with others ripe for God's nature to transform our world? Being created in God's image isn't some abstract theological concept. It's a true statement about the nature of our identity as Christ followers. As we finish this week up, let's dig into the questions for processing the pursuit. We've got just 3 sections to think about today. Number 1. You have been given rule or leadership responsibility over certain areas of your life. Some of these areas are listed on the next screen. Beside each one, briefly describe your rule here. What kind of leader are you in these areas of your life? I realize some of you aren't married or have kids, and some may not even be in your career yet, so skip over those and think about the others. Here's the list: marriage, children, career, church, your school, your team, your dating relationships, and your peers. All leaders have a legacy. How would you describe the legacy you're building for the areas listed on that last screen? Are you satisfied with it? If so, what can you do to continue to grow your legacy as a leader? If not, what can you do to change? There's still time, you know. Spend some time in prayer today, asking God to show you a picture of how you have stewarded the rule He has entrusted with you. Ask Him to show you areas in which you have acted in His image by replicating His qualities in your world. Ask Him to reveal to you areas where you need to rely upon Him for improvement. All right, that's it for this week. Remember, I've got free Intentional Walk bracelets to send you. See the comments below for details. I hope you have a great weekend. See you again next Monday as we start talking about integrity. God bless.